So some other news: Steven Adams did get extended. The Knicks are set for talks with Mike Brown and Taylor
who do you
Jenkins.
want, man?
I want Mike Brown if I had to pick between him and Taylor Jenkins.
Is that just because of the offensive upside he's going to bring you?
It is. In 2022, the Kings had the best offensive rating in the NBA at the time, the
NBA
best
history.
offensive rating in NBA history, exactly. And I think that he's a good coach. And before being known for offense with the Kings, he was known as a defensive coach. The Kings had this nice tradition where they would give players defensive player of the game chains. So any player that had like a good defensive performance, they'd have like they wear that chain for like the night and stuff. He probably got a lot.
Probably.
Keegan Murray got some. Sabonis got one time. So I think that type of energy is a bit infectious. But it did rub me the wrong way that he didn't play Keon Ellis that much when I felt like it was obvious that Keon Ellis should have been playing. And then Taylor Jenkins, I think that's more so like a depth move where he plays a deep bench and he knows how to develop players. So I think with the Knicks, that's one of the problems they have. So
Calm Daddy A.
I don't think they can go wrong either way, but it makes me question why they fired Thibs in the first place.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is a Knicks team that's fresh off an ECF appearance. Shocked the world by beating Boston in the second round. Went out there, gave it, a tough fight, but could have won that Pacers series if they didn't choke a game or two. And then you go out and you fire Thibs. All right, cool. Like, I don't think Thibs was the guy that was going to push you over the limit, but he's the guy that's kept the stability in the building. You would think they would go out and they would look for somebody that can be like a legit game changer. I don't think Taylor Jenkins.
Well, they tried. They wanted Ime.
I feel like that was just them trying to use their New York tax. Like, bro, we're the Knicks and we're just gonna call everybody and like we're winning now.
What's a trade for Ime?
Yeah,
like what?
Yo, deuce for Ime straight up. Do you think the Rockets do it? I'm dead serious.
They don't.
No shot.
Now, let me ask you a question because I hear where you're coming from, and I think that all basketball fans feel the same way. Like, how don't you have a plan after firing Thibs? In terms of going ahead and trying to find someone way better, who? Genuinely.
I don't think
because we know the Mike Brown experience, and I say that with respect.
Yeah,
we know what it's gonna be.
But I feel like Taylor Jenkins kind of is what Thibs did. He's a foundation setter. Like he's a guy that builds a foundation, but he doesn't take you over the top.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. Is there a significant upgrade that's not on a team already? The answer is no.
So I feel like that's when you go somewhere new.
Yeah.
And that's where I agree. Go ahead and find one of these young assistants on one of these stacked teams. Go ahead and maybe you find an assistant coach on OKC. You see all the people that have been glamoring over the Cavaliers assistant head coaches. Why isn't that an option for you? You should have had a plan. And that is where I agree. However, you can't right now look at the landscape of available free agent coaches and think that there's a better option than Thibs right now. And I think that's where it's on the. I agree. They made a mistake right now.
They thought they had a real chance to get Ime or one of these other guys.
I think they thought they really had a chance to use that Knicks tax. Like, yo, we are in New York. We just went to the ECF. We can lure a coach to the spot. But like, I feel like you didn't have to fire him a week after you lost or whatever it was. It was so fast. You could have waited, played it out, see what the vibe was. Or even then, like, have a plan. You didn't have a plan.
They had no plan. They just knew.
We just knew Thibs wasn't the guy. Like, we don't want Thibs no more. Whatever he did was great. He built us back to where we needed to be. He is a good coach. I would never deny that Thibs is a good coach.
Great.
They thought they would get better. Now you're looking like you're going to get guys that are probably on the same level as Thibs or same tier as Thibs. I don't,
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think what you're saying about not having a plan is really what it feels like, because even when we first heard the rumors of them reaching out to all of these other head coaches, like, what are you doing? It feels like you show up to school, no homework done, and you just went up there and just started winging it because you didn't really know what was going on in class. Because I don't know, I don't think it wasn't too long ago that Taylor Jenkins we thought was like a top 10 coach, pretty comfortably, right? When he was overachieving with Memphis, where we thought he was one of the better offense or better basketball minds in the NBA. But then overachieving, you're going to get hype. But once you start underachieving or start, not being able to progress, then people start seeing for, kind of the chinks that you have in your armor. And I don't think Taylor Jenkins was the reason necessarily why Memphis has struggled the last couple of years. Of course, all the injuries they've dealt with, John Moran off the court stuff is just stuff that what can a head coach really do about that? But I also feel the same way as you guys. Like, if you bring in Taylor Jenkins or a Mike Brown, or we're looking at the Knicks, like, holy shit, they just went from a B coach to an A coach. Realistically, there probably isn't an A coach out there, right? Like, if you're a free agent head coach, you're probably not one of the best head coaches in the NBA, right? Like, there's a reason why Spoelstra and Ime and all of these guys, like Ime got hired 6 months after he got fired from Boston. It didn't take much time at all for him to get picked up. But I agree with you, Drew. At this point, the one thing I think the NBA severely lags behind the NFL is when it comes to coaching, because coaches in the NBA, it's just wash and repeat. It's just recycling the same coaches over and over again. And sometimes it works out. Like, I think Thibs, for when it's all said and done, it worked out in New York, right? You didn't win a championship, but you set the foundation. But we see in the NFL, if you hire a head coach that was just fired, more often than not, people are looking at you like that's a bad hire, right? There's outliers out there, but for the most part, you want to find, your Shanahan, you want to find your McVay, you want to find these hot up and coming assistants to try to take you over the top. So if I was a Knicks, that's the route I would go. At least both, right? Like, interview Taylor Jenkins, interview Mike Malone, whoever you want to, but also interview, Johnny Bryant from Cleveland or one of these other coaches on, some of the teams you mentioned. So I'd be interested to see what they do. I think Mike Brown gives you some real offensive upside. Can you figure this? Can you really unlock something with Cat and Jalen Brunson? Can you be the best offense in basketball? Because you sure have the talent to do so. But at the end of the day, I think the Knicks roster is still going to be, just flawed enough to whatever coach you bring in, you're not going to all of a sudden be championship favorites.
I feel like the NFL is much easier to identify those guys.
That's fair.
At least when it comes to the average fan, because we know that there are some head coaches that they don't coach or call plays for their side of the ball. Mm-hmm. Like, we know Ben Johnson is a hot candidate because the Lions offense is elite and he calls the plays for the offense. I think the last time that I could think of an assistant that NBA fans were universally high on was when Jordi Fernandez got signed to the Nets. I felt like everybody kind of thought Jordi Fernandez is a really damn good head coach. We know he's an assistant with the Kings, but he's going to be something. And with the Nets, they just don't have the talent yet, so we're not able to see that fully pan out.
But still, even without their talent, he looks like a good hire.
Yeah, he looks like he knows what he's doing. And with the NBA, I feel like there's just a lot of PR backlash when you go out and you sign an assistant. Like, if they fired Thibs, a coach that just took the team to the conference finals, and they hired Johnny Bryant, which I know within the Knicks fan base, they want him and they'd be fine with that hire. To everybody else, they'd say, Johnny Bryant, really? You fired Thibs, a coach of the year, for a guy who's never coached? It's kind of looked more, it's frowned upon in the NBA, where in the NFL, you get applauded for taking those types of risks, even if they don't necessarily work. Now, sometimes you do hire old coaches and they do work, like the Commanders with Dan Quinn.
100%.
Now, everybody thought that was a bad hire, and then he ended up changing Washington, and he was good for them. So I don't know.
Lucky they got Jane Daniels.
They did. Maybe Mike Brown. Maybe Mike Brown will be different in a different culture. I mean, the Kings organization is terrible.
It's tough for me.
Like, if I had to pick between Mike Brown and Taylor Jenkins, I would go with Mike Brown.
I get where you're coming from because of the offensive upside. No doubt I get it. I think Taylor Jenkins, I think that it's fascinating to me when I think about his trajectory in the league from when I started on the show to where I'm at right now. Because when I started at the show, Taylor Jenkins was a hot commodity. People and fans love Taylor Jenkins. He knew how to develop young players. He took this young Memphis team and he made them a top 3 team, or he played a part in making them a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. And as time's gone on and as his guys have gotten less available, he has become less attractive to the NBA fan. I wonder why that is.
I just don't think it's the situation.
He lost control of Memphis. He didn't have any say and power at the end. And that's why this past
front
season,
office had a plan already, so I understand what you're saying.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
The assistants that they hired before this season, basically, they told Taylor Jenkins, fire all your assistants. We're going to hire these assistants. And the assistants that the Grizzlies hired were the highest paid assistant coaches in NBA. And they said, Taylor Jenkins, you're going to run their offense. And that's what he had to do.
And I'll give credit to Memphis. That's called having a plan. Shout out to them.
Might not be a great plan.
But I
definitely
just
something they stuck to.
But I do wonder.
And they hired the guy that
no facts. They had a plan. 100% they had a plan. But I do wonder if it's wrong for the Knicks to take a shot on a guy who was once regarded as one of the premier coaches in the league. Now, a guy that immediately comes to mind of all the coaches that the Knicks tried to target, Ime, Jason Kidd, of course, there's one head coach that is respected and acknowledged by NBA fans across, and it's Will Hardy. But Will Hardy coaches arguably the worst team in the league in the Utah
You
Jazz.
just signed an extension.
But
too,
there's
I think.
one piece on that team that you know for sure is not going anywhere, and that's Will Hardy. Now, what do the Knicks have to do to try and bring a guy like Will Hardy over to New York? Because that's a piece that genuinely seems where what is the Jazz's direction is, because you look at the Rockets, obviously they're trending up with Ime. You look at Dallas, they're not going to move Kidd. Obviously, Kidd has put such a foundation for them defensively. And then, of course, with Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, God willing, being healthy next season.
That'd be if Kidd wants to leave.
That's a fact.
which I don't think
Does Ime want to leave? Does Jason Kidd want to leave? Now, if I'm the Knicks, I have an opportunity to go ahead and get a guy like Will Hardy. What's the price on that? To me, that's something that I would have at least entertained, and at least I would have understood. I think that that's one for the Jazz to be gatekeeping a guy like Will Hardy and continuously do nothing to their roster, whether it's bring in personnel, trade personnel to try and get more assets. It's just the fact that they're sitting on their hands doing nothing. I think that's what bothers me, and would like to see Will Hardy on a place where he actually has a chance to compete. He actually has a chance to show the world that he is a great coach, and that would be on the Knicks.
Yeah, Hardy signed an extension in May.
Yeah,
So
I know.
probably-
The
I know.
Jazz have gotten unlucky with their draft lottery odds. And where
the
they
whole
landed.
but
It's
you
not
want to know
tracking
who else
defense.
got unlucky? The Pistons. With 3 years in a row, the 5th pick overall, but they got super lucky with their first overall pick. And
Like the
Cade
Jazz got the 9th pick last year, or the 10th pick, and they drafted Cody Williams. It was a combination of unluckiness, but also just drafting the wrong player.
and Taylor Hendricks goes ahead and gets injured this year.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
I mean, they don't have talent really.
But
I
then
like
Isaiah
Mike Brown.
Collier was a hit.
Yeah,
right? Like,
he
let's
was.
pretend they
He was
drafted Isaiah Collier instead of
Yeah.
Cody Williams with that 10th pick or 8th pick, 9th pick, whatever the hell it was. I'm blanking.
I just feel like Mike Brown, he can instill a certain type of toughness that I feel like Mikal Bridges needs. Because Mikal Bridges has kind of been an all right defender
His screen
since he's been with the
navigation
Knicks
is
and over the last couple of years with the Nets. Mikal has
How many
not been
players'
an elite
navigation's
defender
good?
in a long
poor.
time.
A lot.
But if Thibs
A
can't bring it
lot?
out, you think Mike Brown, like Thibs is that kind of coach too.
I don't feel
He
I
was
don't-
complaining about playing too much. With Thibs.
I don't
Should
think that
definitely show
Mikal
good
Bridges.
screen navigation. Let's start there.
My assumption
Me
is he
hearing
didn't
that, I
like
thought-
Tibbs all that much
Yeah,
because
no, for sure.
Dolan, what he did is that he got it. There was a meeting, exit meetings, where it was the coach, it was the front office, and Dolan was sitting in on these meetings, and they would have some players come in and air grievances about the season. I don't think Tibbs attended this. I think it was just the front office and Dolan. And some people have been speculating that the Tibbs firing might have been an ownership decision, which based on them lacking organization in their coaching search could be a very real thing. And maybe a lot of players said things that Dolan really thought that was an indictment on Tibbs. And then he went out and he made the move, and Leon Rose is covering for him by saying this was 100% my decision.
That's a
because
bad
Leon
sign.
Rose and Tibbs are very close, to the point that Leon Rose's daughter said goodbye to Tibbs when he was fired by the Knicks. So they're very close. So I could also assume that ownership played a role in this move, which would be unfortunate after all the years
It'd be
that
shocking.
have
The
been
Knicks
built
got
up with the
good
Knicks.
when Dolan finally said, "All right,
That's
you,
what I'm saying.
you guys got it." And then the first move, I mean, I'm sure he's had a part in other moves, but to
there
me,
were
this involved
things
against bad.
that Tibbs did that were frustrating, which I can
Perfect.
understand if they wanted a new voice. I just think Mike Brown, before he got the Kings job, he met with De'Aaron Fox out the country during his honeymoon, and they were in the gym and they basically talked. And Mike Brown was basically telling Fox, like, you know, what do you want to do in Sacramento? What are your goals? And they had a long conversation, and De'Aaron Fox kind of, you know, told him that he wants to be an all-star. He wants to lead the team to the playoffs. And Mike Brown instilled a new culture with the Kings, and they were able to be the 3rd seed. Now, I think that didn't last because of front office decisions, and also the Kings in a very stacked West, it's hard to remain competitive. I think with the Knicks, with a top 5 roster in the East,
Mm-hmm.
there's a better chance that we'll remain more competitive within our conference than the Kings did within their conference. And I think maybe he could get Mikal to play better defense next season.
I also think his player development wasn't good. Keegan Murray was supposed to be an essential piece in their growth as a franchise. That flopped.
I think that
Dropped
Mike Brown, he pushed Keegan Murray to take on that role. Keegan Murray just isn't good enough to do that.
Yeah,
And
how
then-
much is on the coach versus the player?
Keon Ellis. That's
No,
where
that's
I
fair.
come back
That's
now,
fair.
and I can't help but look poorly upon his last moments as being the coach for the Kings.
Yeah, it's tough because you just can make the comment all the coaches, you know?
I don't disagree
with Thibs you could complain about.
But can we complain about Taylor Jenkins? What's there to complain about? Your best player and John Morant is not playing like your best player.
I think,
and you're still a top 6 seed in the West.
I think the only thing you may complain about is towards the end. I feel like the players and him kind of bashed.
I don't disagree.
You know? That's the only thing. But again, if I'm Taylor Jenkins and I'm here and I'm about to get fired, shit, yeah, like I'm not surprised that them and the players bashed heads. Like my job's on the line, you know. So
and on top of it, in my opinion, I look at Taylor Jenkins and think, you know what? He was doing the job. Yeah. He was out there in a locker room that didn't really go by what he was saying or feel what he was saying, and they still were out there executing what he wanted to do, and they were winning basketball games. I look at Mike Brown, and yes, his team may not have been as talented or as deep as the Grizzlies. That's objective. That's fair. But Mike Brown made bad decisions towards the end of his tenure too. I don't think what was Taylor Jenkins' bad decision that he made? Like off the top of my head, there's not one that comes to mind. I just think that if you gave him that opportunity with the Knicks, I think that it's a bit safer. I understand the offensive upside because Mike Brown did that with the Kings, but I think Taylor Jenkins has shown with even your best player playing at his worst, realistically. Yes, you still had Jaren Jackson. Yes, you still had some nice young players in Jalen Wells and what he was able to ascend to in his rookie season. But you're going to have more talent on the Knicks with Taylor Jenkins with a better player in Jalen Brunson. Mm-hmm. I think that that's what intrigues me the most. So out of those two guys, give me Taylor.